Oh, a new visitor from the woods. Welcome. Are you a lost wanderer, tired from a long journey? Then join me. Sit beside the fireplace and let me tell you some stories that may soothe your mood as you regain your strength. Are you all set? Good. Let's head south this time and talk about the great empire in the vast desert, none other than the Shuriman Empire. They may have fallen in today's era, but Shurima was one of the fastest thriving civilizations of their time. And of course, behind that is a great emperor who ruled the land towards greatness. Here's the story of Azir, the Emperor of the Sands. Born in the royal family of the Shuriman Empire, Azir was the last son of the emperor. Being part of a royal family must be great, especially if they are the great ruler of a thriving empire. Unfortunately, Azir never received the same love from the emperor compared to his siblings. The unfair treatment was evident. Seemingly, those who had the potential to be the ruler received more attention, and it was even highly unexpected that he would be the one to become emperor. This may sound like a lonely situation, but Azir did not pay that much attention. The throne was not something he wanted to compete. Instead, he spent most of his time studying the texts rather than training for combat. It's the custom that the next ruler should know how to fight. But since it's clear that he is not a candidate for that position, studying was the chosen route of Azir, and he loved it. The library has been the place for Azir. He is in the vicinity almost every day. On a fateful encounter, Azir met a slave looking for texts for his master in the library. Being knowledgeable in every area of the place, Azir led the way where the boy could find the mentioned texts. They were able to find it in no time, and then headed back out while chatting. On their way back, the boy saw the text that Azir was trying to read. Azir admitted that it had been a struggle for him to know those texts by himself, and was reaching how to. In order to show his gratitude to Azir, the boy offered to help him read the text. Azir thought it was a joke, but surprisingly, he was able to help Azir understand complex grammar from ancient text. After this, the two quickly became friends, and Azir named the boy Zarath, even though slaves were not allowed names. The boy was delighted, and he took this gratitude to his heart by accepting the name given by a member of the royalty. Zarath proceeded on his way, but the two promised to meet more often in the future. Having a new friend, Zarath oftentimes adheres to Azir's side, disguising the setup as Azir's requested guard. This setup worked well, allowing the two kids to bond more. One day, while the royal family was traveling in the desert, a group of assassins attacked their route. In the midst of the chaos, Azir and Zarath had gone out to plot the stars, trying to figure out their current location. They didn't have the strength to fight back, so the best option they had was to scan the place and look for a place to hide, hoping that they could somehow escape the chaos. Unfortunately, luck was not in their favor. The assassins circled their wagon, and one of them saw the kids and went straight for Azir. Zarath managed to suppress the attacker, while Azir plunged the dagger that was pointing into his throat. A few moments later, a commander of the Emperor named Runeterra arrived and managed to slay the assassins. Azir and Zarath were safe, but the rest of Azir's brothers were killed during the attack. Overwhelmed by the events, Azir promised that one day he and Zarath would be brothers. Runeterra escorted Azir and Zarath back to the Empire, and then reported the events to the Emperor. Saddened by the news, the Emperor ordered Runeterra to train Azir, who had been avoiding combat training. Azir, now heir to the throne, began to train in combat under the tutelage of Runeterra. Day by day, Azir was improving with his combat skills. He learned to wield the sword, but the spear fits his fighting style better. Due to the training, Azir's physique was developed. He continued to do so while rocking a long, dark hair tied in dreadlocks and various trappings of royalty. He didn't wear a shirt, but his chest and arms were adorned with all kinds of Shuriman amulets and necklaces. He wore white baggy pants with red ribbons around his hips, completely transitioning from a studious kid into a worthy warrior. The pressure was now on Azir's shoulders, since he was now the eldest son of the Emperor. He would automatically inherit the throne if the Emperor failed to raise other sons as candidates. While Azir's training was in progress, the Emperor tried his best to raise a son with his wives. It seems like he still doesn't want Azir to take up the throne, and maybe this would be solved by a newborn. Strangely, fate was not aligned with the Emperor's desire. All the sons of the Emperor's wives began to die before they were born. Eventually, one survived and was born, but during a great storm, the Emperor's wife was killed along with her newborn son. It was said that the Emperor went mad with grief and took his own life, leaving Azir to take the throne. Azir was shocked by the deaths of his family, basically leaving him alone in the royalty. It felt like he was just a passenger in everything that had happened to him, and it does not stop there. The situation does not allow him to grieve because the Empire needs a leader. It was that moment when Azir finally grasped and accepted his fate to be the next ruler of Shurima. And with Zerath at his side, he took control of Shurima as its emperor. No more passenger in the waves of the sand. He must take charge once and for all. In the first couple of years, some citizens were doubtful of their new leader, viewing him as a passive character similar to his youth. However, Oma Azir exceeded all expectations. Over the next decade, he expanded Shurima's borders and ruled with a harsh but just hand. He instituted reforms to better the lives of slaves and privately developed a plan to overturn millennia of tradition and eventually free them all. Those who were taking advantage of the poor raised their eyebrows with the new emperor's vision, creating political disagreement in the empire. Azir kept his plans secret, even from Zerath. He was only pulling the strings behind the curtains for now, which caused the issue of slavery to be a continual bone of contention between Azir and Zerath. The empire had been built on the back of slavery, and many of the great noble houses depended on enforced labor for their vast wealth and power. Such monolithic institutions could not be overturned overnight, and Azir's plans would be undone were they to become common knowledge. Despite Azir's desire to name Zerath his brother, he could not do so until all of Shurima's slaves were free. However, their strong bond was slowly decaying as the two held different perspectives on their journey. Through these years, Zerath protected Azir from his political rivals and guided the expansion of the empire. Azir married and fathered numerous children, some by wedlock, others by ill-advised liaisons with slaves and harem girls. But even though Azir did some things off the track, the empire was indeed thriving, and it was even safe to say that Azir was the best emperor throughout Shurima's history. Seeing Azir become greedy as a ruler, Zerath stoked the empire's grand vision of an empire greater than any the world had ever known. But to stand as ruler over the entire world, Zerath convinced Azir that he would need to be all but invincible, a god amongst men, an ascended being. As the kingdom reached the zenith of its power, Azir announced he would undertake the Ascension ritual, that the time was right for him to take his place alongside Nasus and Renekton and their glorious forebears. Many questioned this decision, The ascension ritual was highly dangerous and intended only for those near the end of their lives, those who had devoted their lives to Shurima, and those whose service was to be honored with ascension. It was for the Sun Priest to decree who would be blessed with ascension, not the hubris of an emperor to bestow it upon himself. But the people's words would not dissuade Azir from his rash course of action, for his arrogance had grown along with his empire, and he ordered them to comply on pain of death. The day of the ritual finally came, and Azir marched toward the dais of ascension, flanked by thousands of his warriors and tens of thousands of his subjects. The brothers Renekton and Nasus were absent, having been dispatched by Zerath to deal with an emergent threat, but still, Azir would not turn from what he saw as his great destiny. He climbed to the great golden disk atop the temple at the heart of the city, and in the moments before the Sun Priest began the ritual, he turned to Zerath and finally freed him. And not just him, but all his slaves. Zerath was stunned into speechlessness, but Azir was not yet done. He embraced Zerath and named him his eternal brother, as he had promised he would all those years ago. Azir turned as the priest began the ritual to bring down the awesome power of the sun. Azir was unaware that Zerath had studied more than just history and philosophy in his quest for knowledge. He had learned the dark arts of sorcery, all the while nursing a desire for freedom that had grown like a cancer into a burning hatred. At the height of the ritual, the former slave unleashed his powers, and Azir was blasted from his place on the dais. Without the protection of the runic circle, Azir was consumed by the sun's fire as Zerath took his place. The light filled Zerath with power, and he roared as his mortal body began to transform. But the magic of the ritual was not intended for Zerath, and such awesomely powerful celestial energies could not be diverted without dire consequences. The power of the ascension ritual exploded outward, devastating Shurima and laying waste to the city. Its people burned to ash, and its towering palaces fell to ruin as the desert sands rose to swallow the city. The sun disk sank from the sky, and what had taken centuries to build was brought to ruin in an instant by one man's ambition and another's misplaced hate. All that remained of Azir's city were sunken ruins and echoes of its people's screams on the night winds. The day of the supposed emperor's ascension became the start of the downfall of Shurima. The catastrophic event buried everyone in the vicinity, and even though there were still some Shuriman who were deployed elsewhere during the event, none of them had any experience in ruling an empire. The throne of the empire is up for grabs, but the question is, who should be the one claiming it? Politics immediately ignited uncontrollably as the Shurimans fought to be the next emperor of Shurima. The Ascended renamed themselves as Sunborn and continued to clash with each other. Their battle brought devastation to Shurima, and the citizens began to call them Darken instead, which was the Shuriman term for the Fallen. Without a clear vision of their next leader was emerged in the land, it was even more catastrophic, since Shurima just fought a war against Ikathia and was dealing with the void problems. It was Azir who had been expertly navigating the Empire's problem, but without him, everything went astray. The Great Darken War went out of control as the Shuriman Empire met its downfall. After all that happened throughout the years, Azir saw none of it. For him, all was nothingness. His last memories were of pain and fire. He knew nothing of what befell him atop the temple, nor what became of his empire. Seemingly not dead nor alive, Azir continuously drifted towards the end of time. It has been thousands of years after Shurima's doom and Azir remained lost in timeless oblivion, until one day, a girl entered the ruins. Average height, curvaceous and somewhat toned, with long jet-black hair that falls down her back, and shiny blue eyes. Her name is Severe, a descendant from the bloodline of Azir. During her exploitation of the ruins, an accident happened, making her fall deeper into the ruins. Her blood spilled into the tomb, which became the reason for Azir's resurrection. At long last, Azir was reborn, but was yet incomplete. His body was little more than animate dust given form, held together by the last vestiges of his indomitable will. Gradually resuming his corporeal form, Azir stumbled through the ruins and came across the corpse of a woman with a treacherous knife wound in her back. He had no idea about Severe, but saw in her features the distant echo of his bloodline. All thoughts of empires and power were forgotten as he lifted his daughter of Shurima and bore her to what had once been the Oasis of the Dawn. The oasis was empty and dry, but with every step Azir took, clear water began filling the rocky basin. Azir immersed the Severe's body in the restorative waters of the oasis, and as the blood washed away, only a faint scar remained where the blade had pierced her. And with that act of selflessness, Azir was lifted in a column of fire as the magic of Shurima renewed him, remaking him as the ascended being he was meant to become. The sun's immortal radiance poured into him, crafting his magnificent hawk-armored form and granting him the power to command the very sand itself. Azir lifted his arms, and his ruined city shrugged off the dust of centuries spent beneath the desert to rise anew. The sun disk lifted into the sky once more, and healing waters flowed between temples, heaving themselves back into the light at the Emperor's command. Resurrection, and then ascension. After thousands of years, Shurima will stand once more. Azir climbed the steps of the newly risen Sun Temple, weaving the desert winds to recreate the city's last moments. Ghosts formed of sand relived his city's last moments from long ago, and Azir watched in horror as Zerath's treachery unfolded. He wept as he saw his family murdered, his empire fall, and his power stolen. Only now, millennia too late, did he finally understand the depths of hatred harbored by his former friend and ally. With the power and prescience of an ascended being, Azir sensed Zerath somewhere abroad in the world and summoned an army of sand warriors to march alongside the reborn emperor. Without an empire to lead, Azir embodied a new goal. As the sun blazed from the golden disk above him, Azir swore a mighty oath. "I will reclaim my lands and take back what was mine." Since then, Azir marched through Runeterra, searching for Zerath. It will only be a matter of time before the two sworn brothers face again. And when that time comes, what do you think might happen? That will be the food for thought. Be sure to join me again as we unfold more stories from Runeterra.